This is Dr. Bhavna Pandey, Assistant Professor from School of Management, Abu Banasidas University. My today's lecture is titled Human Resource Planning and Productivity. And we'll cover topics like the concept of productivity and its role in human resource planning, its history, importance, and some of the factors that affect productivity, and the concept of total factor productivity. Okay, so to start with, in any organization, if there are initiatives to do human resource planning, then it has to take into account the productivity factor. Now, for manpower demand forecasting, the estimation of manpower requirement has to be done in relation to the workload. So for analyzing or for estimating the workload of the organization, it has to first start with finding the manpower requirement for different categories of job. To accomplish the job in its entirety has to be determined first. So the man days have to be determined first. And then after such determination, the total requirement of manpower for different categories of jobs has to be determined. So for such analysis, it calls for taking into account the productivity factor, because the manpower requirement is also affected by productivity. If the productivity is high in any organization, then it may need less of manpower as compared to an organization where productivity is low. It may need more of manpower. Now, productivity has two major components: technological change and manpower utilization. Now, as technological changes, they require huge capital investment. Organizations usually look for increasing manpower utilization for increasing productivity. Now, productivity is considered the input-output relationship. That is, it is the quantitative measurement of input-output relationship. With a given input, what is the output? So conventionally, it was thought that productivity is attributed to labor efficiency alone. But now this is no longer true. As organizations, they operate on team efforts. There are different departments taking up different functions. And unless all these departments undertaking different functions, if these different team groups, they do not coordinate together, the organization will not be able to succeed. And if there is deficiency in any one functional area, that will offset the efficiency of other areas. So because all these functions, they are interdependent. So any functional area which is not doing so well, or where the efficiency is not so high, it will offset the efficiency of other areas also. Secondly, the concept of input has widely changed. So it is no longer confined to the direct materials that are used in the production, like your raw materials, fuel, etc. So now knowledge, ideas, these abstract forms are also within the definition context of inputs. Thirdly, as I said, productivity is not attributed to labor efficiency alone. It is the contribution of each factor of production. Factors of production are your land, labor, capital, organizations, and so on. So the contribution of each factor of production adds to the overall corporate efficiency. Now, looking at the history of productivity, it was originally enunciated by classical economists like Adam Smith, David Ricardo, J.S. Mill, in the 18th and 19th century, in the form of law of diminishing returns to all sources. However, in the 19th century, it was Frederick Taylor who said that human productivity could be increased with time. And it is not just hard work, but smart work that could lead to productivity. In India, the productivity movement gained momentum after the establishment of National Productivity Council in 1958. So it was after the World War II that the economic growth in major countries around the world was urgently required. The economic growth was urgently required after World War II, when the economy of the most nations was completely ravaged and it needed reconstruction and renovation. So, following factors that were crucial to economic growth at that time were capital growth and high productivity of all factors of production. So, again, productivity gained momentum after the World War II. If we define productivity from the economic point of view, productivity means the yield from each factor of production. So, land, labor, capital, these are all factors of production, and it is the produce from each of these factors of production. For example, if you put land into use, what is the produce from there? And similarly, if the manpower is utilized or the worker is put into use, then what is the output? So it is the produce from each factor of production. And productivity also means the produce from each input, like raw material, fuel, time, knowledge, information. So again, what is the input and what is the output? And thirdly, it also means total factor productivity, that is the overall produce that we get from the joint factors and resources that are put into use. From the management perspective, it is in its broadest sense the quantitative relationship between what we produce and what we have spent to produce. Now, there is also a distinction between production and productivity. So, production is the process of transforming the inputs into finished goods and services, whereas productivity is efficiency of production. So, it denotes surplus generation. If we talk in terms of input-output relationship, it is the axis output that you get when productivity is increased, and productivity can be increased if you change the input ratios. So if you increase the input ratios or make it more efficient, then output can be increased. Like for example, if we use better quality seeds in growing crops, then the output of the crop can be increased. So, right. So that means it is the overall efficiency of all the factors of production that leads to overall corporate efficiency. So productivity, it is not just the one single approach that is the conventionally it was thought that it is only the labor of efficiency that will lead to increased outcomes, but productivity it relates to all factors of productions and the resources that are used, which leads to overall corporate efficiency. Now, according to European Productivity Council, productivity is an attitude of mind. It is a mentality of progress, of the constant improvement of that which exists. It is certainty of being able to do better than yesterday and continuously. It is constant adoption of economic and social life to changing conditions. It is continual effort to apply new techniques and methods. It is faith in human progress. So as we can see, the definition focuses on that any nation or any organization targeting productivity has to continuously work for it, and it has to look for improved ways, improved techniques and methods of doing work. Then in the words of Peter Drucker, productivity means a balance between all factors of production that will give the maximum output with the smallest effort. So again, it talks about balancing the factors of production. So it is the contribution of all the factors of productions and resources that are put to use, which lead to maximum output over a given input. So these are some of the examples of each type of productivity. For example, the productivity of land. So if we have to increase the productivity of land, and if you're growing crops, and if you have to increase the produce from the crop, then better seeds, better quality seeds could be used. Better methods of cultivations, better fertilizers can lead to uh, a bumper crop. So it can, with the given inputs, the output could be increased tremendously. Then secondly, if we look at productivity of material, now a skilled retailer. So how the materials are used also can lead to higher productivity. So if the material is used optimally by a skilled person, the productivity can be increased as compared to someone who is unskilled and leads to a lot of wastage in using the material. Thirdly, productivity of machines. Now again, machines, if they are obsolete, not working properly, can again offset the efficiency of the machines. So with improved tools and with improved machines, the productivity can be increased. Then the productivity of men, that is labor. Again, with the help of education, training, skill development, and better methods of doing work, the efficiency of labor could be increased, thereby leading to increased productivity. So if we look at the importance of productivity, that is, productivity is a key to prosperity, and it leads to economic growth and social progress. Now, as we saw earlier, productivity is the input-output relationship. So if we increase the input, if we change the input ratio, we can tremendously change the output ratio. Now, if productivity is achieved, it results in higher production. That is, it denotes surplus generation. So this has direct impact on standard of living. It reduces cost because efficiency is there in all factors of production. So it leads to less cost, and which again enables reduction in sale price. So if there is a reduction in sale price, it is beneficial for the consumers because low price will increase demand for the products, and if there is more demand for the product, it will increase the profits of the organization. Higher profits will enable organization to offer higher dividends and higher salaries and wages, and it will also increase exports. So productivity can have far-reaching effects. It can lead to economic prosperity, and it can also lead to economic growth and social progress. Then higher productivity also leads to elimination of all kinds of waste, like wastage of time, wastage of space, then wastage of not using the raw material in the right way. Then the men can be, there can be less wastage in terms of human efforts, and so on. So, and there are different techniques like work study and others which can minimize wastage of resources. Then productivity is also important in our country, where there is a lot of poverty and unemployment. So productivity again can minimize this factor. Now looking at the factors that affect productivity. Now first, there is nature and quality of raw materials. Now as I gave the example earlier of using better seeds, so if the raw materials, they are handled properly, and better ways are used for using the raw materials, and if the quality of the raw material is good, that is, if you use good quality seeds, good quality fertilizer, then the output can be surplus output can be achieved. So nature and quality of raw material affects productivity. Secondly is the basic nature of processes employed. So there are better ways of doing work. So if the existing process is not leading to higher productivity, then the other better ways of or better processes can be utilized, and with the help of technology and scientific research, improved way of doing work can be employed. Then the amount of plant and equipment being employed, right? So in India, initially there was a lot of manual work, so, which led to less productivity and lot of human effort. So with the use of mechanical equipments, productivity can be increased, and updating of existing technologies can enhance productivity. So how much plant and equipment is employed will also affect productivity. If there is too much of manual work and less of automation and less use of technology, then productivity will be affected. Then the fourth is efficiency of plant and equipment employed. So the plants and equipments that are working should be working in efficiently, should be working properly, right? And information on what is the production from the use of plants and equipment, what is the cost, how is it performing, all this also has to be made available to the people concerned, so that if there are any kind of shortfalls, it can be corrected. Then volume, continuity and uniformity of production means that standardization of products also leads to higher productivity. So if product can be standardized, so mass production can be beneficial both for the consumers, and also it can increase productivity, rather than using specialized ways of producing the products, which may vary time to time and which may lead to less productivity. So standardization of products also affects productivity. Then lastly, it's the utilization of manpower. So manpower is very crucial, and if manpower productivity can be increased with effective use of education, training, skill upgradation. Then there are other things like participative culture, that is including workers in making key decisions, then sharing gains of productivity. These are all ways to enhance productivity and avoid fatigue and frustration in workers. Now, what is total factor productivity? Now, from the economic perspective, total factor productivity means the efficiency and contribution of each factor of production, like land, labor, capital, and organization. So when we use the factors of production and the resources, how is it contributing, how efficient it is, that leads to total factor productivity. Now, factor endowments, that is when you use these factors of production, it leads to such endowments like rents, wages, interests, and profits. And all these contribute to the national income. And unless these endowments they are realized to the optimum extent, they cannot effectively contribute to the country's overall economic activity and productive efficiency at the macro level. So at the macro level, the productive efficiency is measured at each industrial unit, in which the entire corporate is divided into a number of managerial functions like your marketing department, material management, HR, financial management, etc. And it is very important that all these functional areas they coordinate their activities with each other in order to increase the functional efficiency and thereby increasing the overall corporate efficiency. So, for example, if the marketing department is in charge of the task of selling the goods and services, it is the production department which is manufacturing the product. So there has to be proper coordination between both the departments. If the marketing department sets very aggressive targets, but without taking into consideration the production facilities, the productivity will not be achieved. Similarly, the HR department, again, the people have to be motivated to increase efficiency. Otherwise, if they are not motivated, they are not working properly, they are not properly trained, educated, and skilled, then it will affect the overall corporate efficiency. So all these departments, these functional areas have to coordinate with each other. It is the total contribution of all these functional areas that will lead to overall corporate efficiency and thereby productivity.